All right, everyone, welcome into episode 145 here. It is September the 6th, 2024. I'm Nick Hill, as always, from Chattanooga, Tennessee, United States. And from the country that will be hosting an NFL game today, we have Gus Tomazeli from Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil. Gus, I'm sorry, before I wish you were able to be at the game, but hey, still a big night for Brazil.
Yeah, hey Nick, how's it going? I'm gonna be honest with you. I wish I would be happier today. Definitely, I wish I was in the stadium that I've been so many times for so many matches in soccer, hosting such a monumental game, at least for Brazil. I acknowledge definitely is a historical night for Brazil. First and foremost, let me acknowledge something. There's so much over proportion by some segments of American media, some influencers talking about how Brazil is dangerous and how you should go with tanks. And I see so many things. Like, I know Brazil is not the safest country in the world, but I mean, I been to Itaquera so many times. I know a lot of people who live there, and I went there so many times. Nothing happened to me. I never got assaulted. I never got robbed. I know that there are other people who might have issues with pickpocketing. But for example, like I've been to Baltimore and I walk around the area of the Baltimore Ravens Stadium, and I felt in danger. I felt a little bit, not safe. There were some, people that I was not comfortable with. I know I didn't got robbed, but just a comparison. Like if you walk around maybe a mile or two around, for example, the Baltimore Ravens Stadium, it's not safe. So that sorry to start the pod like that, but I kind of feel like there's a lot of over proportion about safety in Brazil. Like Brazil is a, a good country. I know we have a lot of things that we have to work on, but I'll say this: I very disappointed of the lack of knowledge of Brazil's for with some people that cover the NFL.
Absolutely. I know it's been, I guess, a rough week or so media-wise when it comes to Brazil, especially with the situation with Twitter and Elon Musk and all that. Which, obviously, I hope that gets resolved at some point, and you can get access to Twitter. Um,
Yeah.
you know,
One thing I would be curious if I could have got to the game is asking the members of the PR department of the Eagles, Packers, and the American media that came down to Sao Paulo to see how their reaction when they landed in Brazil and they couldn't access Twitter, and how they're
yeah,
gonna. I guess what they can do is to send the stuff they would have posted on Twitter, I guess through WhatsApp, and send all the way to Green Bay or Philadelphia, and people might post it from there. I would have think so,
right.
and but yeah, I feel a little bit ashamed of that. I feel this issue is way worse than safety and other concerns. I feel like this kind of embarrassed me because Twitter is really huge in America, more so than Brazil. Twitter, since Twitter has been down, I guess for like a week, there has not been any protests or anything because people like here they use Twitter. Maybe some people in sports, soccer, kind of talk about gossip, but there's no like. I think Instagram here in Brazil is way bigger than Twitter. If Instagram is down here, then it would be a bigger story than Twitter.
I'm pretty sure in Knoxville there'd be a riot if Twitter went down with how ingrained Vol Nation is into the Twitterverse. But obviously, no, issues withstanding, and you know, I haven't had the pleasure to come down to Brazil yet. I'm not scared to come down. I just need to. I'm just trying to make it work out financially to come down eventually. But it's unfortunate to hear people coming down and bashing because, like, the whole point of the NFL coming down to Brazil doing this game is to expand the reach of the game. And I kind of want you to, as someone who is familiar with the game of American football, you know a lot of folks who probably aren't familiar with the game of American football. Um, Are they buzzing about this game? Are they planning? Do you know people who are going to watch their first football game tonight in
Oh
Brazil?
yeah. Oh yeah, there's a lot of buzz around. Probably there'll be the stadium is going to be full. 50,000 people is going to show up in Itaquera, Neoquímica Arena, as like I guess for NFL it's going to be called Arena Sao Paulo, which is weird because Sao Paulo is the name of a rival of the owner of the stadium, Corinthians. It's like if there's a game hosted in I say in Chicago, and they call Cub Stadium White Sox Stadium or something like that. I don't know, or
Yeah,
I mean, they could have called at least Itaquera Stadium because it's the name of the neighborhood. It's like,
they probably should that because the American announcers probably couldn't announce it.
yeah, yeah. I guess
That's
Sao Paulo. I guess
that's
Sao Paulo.
probably
I guess Sao Paulo is easier than Itaquera. Yeah,
it's a clever.
but
Well, I mean, we're still teaching people how to say Imaliava too. So yeah,
I,
it,
I I guess with the football in general, NFL and college has been dealing with a lot of different names than the standard American names and stuff.
which is a proof that the game is becoming more global, becoming more international, and I think all of you guys in Brazil are going to get a fantastic matchup tonight in the Philadelphia Eagles and the Green Bay Packers because you have two teams here. You have Jalen Hurts and the Eagles, a team that went to the Super Bowl 2 years ago, had a really rough end of the season last year, trying to get back on their feet. A coach that, by all accounts, is on the hot seat. And then you have a team in the Green Bay Packers, who was my pick to go to the Super Bowl from the NFC, with a quarterback that I think is going to prove himself to be a top 5 quarterback this year in Jordan Love. This is going to be, I think, a highly entertaining game tonight.
Yeah, definitely. I bumped, I guess, the average sports fan who's going to see American football for the first time is going to be very entertained. And definitely going to be a lot of NFL fans in the stadium. I was talking yesterday with a Packers fan who was supposed to come down to the game with me, but I guess arrangement didn't work as we talked earlier. And he was like saying that he knows a lot of Packers fans who save up months to go to the game today. So there's going to be definitely some Packers and Eagles fans, NFL fans, all sorts of football fans. And definitely it's going to be an exciting game. I guess Green Bay, the Packer fans are more cheerful for the start of the season than the Eagles fans because, as you mentioned, the Packers ended up the season last year with a bit of a good tone. They advanced to the divisional round. They eliminated the Cowboys in Dallas. So I guess the Packers are more cheerful today than the Eagles because the way they were eliminated last season was brutal.
Oh, for sure. Um, For sure, and I think there's just a lot of motivation here for both sides, and it just feels like a game that's going to come down to the last possession. However, I'm going to say this: I think the Packers are going to win this one. I think it'll be a one-score game, but I've got Green Bay winning this game.
I For Palmeiras fans will be entertaining to see Green Bay Packers winning because it will be a green team beating the home team. So Palmeiras fans will have a lot of memes. Be like, even in another sport, Corinthians in Corinthians Stadium, the green team wins. Or if the Green Bay Packers wins, there's going to be a lot of memes about it.
Oh, for sure. I can only imagine, especially with the struggles of Corinthians this year. So, yeah. But in any case, yeah, I'm excited to watch that game tonight. That'll be, I believe, an 8:15 kick. In the States, it's on Peacock. I don't know what it's on in Brazil.
Oh, in Brazil is on Rede TV, public channel, ESPN, cable, and Kazé TV on YouTube. So you can watch all sorts of different forms. So so it's funny. So it will be easier for an average Brazilian to watch the game tonight than an average American. How
Yeah, I mean, it
funny is
just
that?
costs $4. I mean, it literally costs $4 to get Peacock. Like, I mean, in Peacock, you get the Big Ten in there too. Like tomorrow night, we got Boise State, Oregon on Peacock, and got some good games on Peacock. this weekend. I mean, it's just. I mean, I've gotten over the streaming wars. It just is what it is. Um,
No, but I'm just saying, like in Brazil, is gonna be on public channel
yeah. Oh yeah.
in so
Although I
I'm
do
just
believe in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, they'll be shown on TV in those areas where the
oh
fans are. But outside
oh
of those markets, you're gonna have to watch it on Peacock.
but it's
But
a
hey, I'm
huge
glad
not.
to have a good. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, go ahead.
I was say I'm just glad to have like an actual like really good game on a Friday night because normally you either only have high school or you have like a really bad college game.
That's fair. And I was gonna say tonight is a huge night also for the Brazilian ESPN because they were kind of the ambassadors of American sports, especially football, in the last 14, 15 years. So the way they always promoted the game, they started like with full broadcast NFL, I think since 2011. So from 2011 until today, they were the cable broadcasters of the NFL. So so it's a huge night, I think, for ESPN as a whole, but more the Brazilian ESPN to see the game they promoted so much in Brazil coming to their neighborhood.
Oh, for sure. I mean, and I hope this inspires more kids in Brazil to take up American football. Maybe provides more, inspires people to create more teams, and maybe one day we'll start seeing some big time Brazilian American football players come out of this.
I think this a little bit. I know I'm gonna be a little bit kind of not enthusiastic, but I don't think this game. I think maybe we'll grow some seeds, maybe 10, 15 years. But I think football in Brazil is way, way behind it. I think football in Brazil is like soccer in America in the 60s and 70s. It's still very developing. For example, there's no football specific stadiums. The teams are semi pros, more like an amateur. There's a league which is a little bit underdeveloped. So I think for the Brazilian football development, maybe will inspire down the road, maybe in 10, 15 years. But for the short period, I don't think there's going to be a change.
Absolutely. And I guess the last thing I want to ask you on this, just as a Brazilian, just talk about what tonight means to you as someone who lived in America for several years, got to experience a ton of American football games, what it means just to allow to see your countrymen experience this sport that you've grown to love.
Of course, there's a little person for me to see coming to my state, even to the city that I love so much, São Paulo. To a neighborhood where they hosted the opener of the World Cup in 2014. It represents a lot. It represents a lot. I hope nothing bad happens. That's what I hope for. I hope there's only talk about what happens on the field. There's nothing talk about off the field. I hope so. And I hope the Brazilian fans have a great night and enjoy the game of football that I came to understand and love. And maybe one day, maybe college football. If college football game comes to Brazil, I have to be there because the NFL, okay, I didn't cover as much. Of course, I covered some Titans games, but if the Tennessee Volunteers or even a college football game comes to Brazil, I have to be there. Not even if I have to
If the
invade the
balls
stadium.
ever go to Brazil, I will be there.
Okay, I don't know. Maybe in 10, 15 years. Who would have thought that Florida State and Georgia Tech would be playing in Dublin, Ireland? So
Absolutely, yeah. So you never know. You never
yeah,
know. So big night for Brazil. Hopefully everything goes well. We have a great, fantastic game. Real quick, I just want to go through the rest of the games. We're just going to pick them and maybe just have a brief comment or two. Obviously, my Tennessee Titans on Sunday start off at Chicago. Titans Bears. Who do you think wins that?
I think important night for Caleb Williams. Definitely, I would imagine he's going to be the starter, right?
Yeah. Caleb Williams will be the starter. Of course, Will Levis is the starter for the Titans. New coaching staff for the Titans here. A new era for both teams. I think it's going to be a very exciting game.
Oh yeah, definitely. But I pick the Bears by a field goal.
Yeah, I agree. I've got Bears here by a touchdown. Steelers at Falcons, new era for both. It looks like Justin Fields will be the starting quarterback instead of Russell Wilson due to an injury. So, uh, Fields versus Kirk Cousins in Atlanta. Who do you got?
I'm excited to see both teams coming to a new era of offense. More the Falcons. I think the Falcons have a chance to finally get over the trauma of 2016. I think after 8 years, I think Falcon fans are feeling hopeful for a season. I have the Falcons.
I'm going to agree. I think the Steelers are going to struggle a lot this year. I think Atlanta gets the win here. Cardinals at Bills.
Oh, I got the Bills. I
Yeah.
mean, there's
I wouldn't be surprised if this is closer than the experts think, but I've got Buffalo. Patriots
but
and Bengals.
I think it's going to be a close game.
I'm really interested to see if Kyler Murray still has anything left in the tank in that game. Patriots and Bengals, I think Cincy. I think New England's going to be the worst team in the league this year.
Yeah, they're definitely on the rebuilding mode with a new coaching staff. First season without Bill Belichick, but I got the Bengals.
Mm-hmm. AFC South matchup, and this one could be one of the games of the day here. Texans at Colts.
Looking at the overall games in the NFL, I think this one has the more kind of future playoff implication because both are going to be fighting for the division. So I got the Colts by a field goal.
I'm going to take the Texans here, but it's going to come down to the wire here. Can Anthony Richardson stay healthy? That's a big deal. But just CJ Stroud, I think, will continue to grow, and that team only got better this offseason. All Florida matchup here. Jacksonville at Miami.
The Florida Derby. Can we call it Florida Derby?
Yeah, the Florida Derby between two teams that I think really should be furious how last year ended.
It's so funny how, both teams have good quarterbacks, have playoff chances, but none of the fan bases, I guess, can fill up a Florida stadium. But anyway, I got Miami.
I agree. I've got the Miami too. I think Trevor Lawrence is on bust watch. I'm going to go ahead and say that now. He needs to have a big year this year. The Carolina Panthers with the New Orleans Saints.
Give me the Saints. It's a make it or break it for Derek Carr. I think he has to be at least somewhat productive.
I'm going to be honest. I'm feeling spicy here. Give me the Panthers. I think the Saints are in a position where I think they could be on the verge of collapse. So sometimes in week one you see an upset. Give me Carolina. The Vikings and the Giants. I think these two teams are going to be terrible. I think the Vikings still have the best player on the field, Jordan Jefferson. I like Sam Darnold to have his best season. Give me the Vikings.
This is going to be my upset alert. Give me the Giants playing at home. I think there's a chance they can upset the Vikings.
Mm-hmm. A battle here at the West Coast got the Las Vegas Raiders and the Los Angeles Chargers. Debut of Jim Harbaugh. I like the Chargers because they have Justin Herbert. That's going to be the difference here.
Even though it's going to be kind of like a more Raiders fans than Chargers fans, I would imagine. Because, California still have a lot of Raiders fans from when they used to play in LA and Oakland. So even though it's going to be a split crowd or even more so for the Raiders, I agree with you. On the field, the best quarterback, Justin Herbert, is going to make a difference.
Yeah, take the Chargers back to San Diego. We've got the Russell Wilson Bowl here. Broncos with Bo Nix at the Seahawks. I like Seattle. I think this Bo Nix is not going to work. I don't have high hopes for him.
Even though Geno Smith has to prove he's a reliable quarterback, because he had a good season, but he had no pressure. I think he has more pressure this year. But I believe in Bo Nix. Give me the Broncos.
Wow, that would be a big upset to me. And I think the Seahawks are going to have to probably move on to a new quarterback in about 2 to 3 years, if not sooner. All right, this will be the prime time, the mid-afternoon game. This will be the debut of Tom Brady as a commentator The Dallas Cowboys at the Cleveland Browns.
I think it's gonna be a high scoring game. Um, Give me the Browns.
I agree.
Let I think finally Deshaun Watson is gonna have a good season. I feel he's gonna have a again make it or break it for Deshaun Watson too.
I'm going Browns here. I think their defense is going to make Dak Prescott's life miserable. I'm curious to see if his connection with CeeDee Lamb is still there. Um, I just think the Browns are in a better spot right now. All right. The debut of Jaden Daniels with the Washington Commanders at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Mm. I guess the Bucks going with Baker Mayfield. I would
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, I think, honestly, Tampa's my pick to win the NFC South. I think they're going to be a really good team. I think Washington will be much improved, too. But I think here, week one, I just think Tampa will have the experience to get it done.
Give me Tampa.
All right. Sunday Night Football game, a rematch of the NFC divisional, or it was the wild card round, I believe, from last year. The Rams at the Lions. Matthew Stafford once again in Detroit for the second time. Lots of pressure on both teams, I think, this year. I'm going to go long. Actually, no, I'm going to go Rams. I think the Rams will come in and avenge their playoff loss.
I think the Rams going to be the most improved team in the West. If in the East, I pick the Falcons to be the most improved team in the NFC. I think in the NFC South, I think the Rams too are going to be the most improved team as well in their division. Give me the Rams.
And then Monday Night Football, we're going to try this again with Aaron Rodgers on Monday Night Football. He returns once again to the team that he desperately wanted to be a part of all those years ago, the San Francisco 49ers, a team that he didn't have a lot of luck with in Green Bay. Does his luck change with the Jets?
Let's see if he can play more than, I guess it was like 3 snaps when he got injured last. Let's see if he can have more than 4 snaps. He has more than 4 snaps. He played more than last season, but I think give me the 49ers, even though the Jets probably is going to be better than last season, and the Aaron Rodgers probably is going to be more reliable. I don't see the Jets going to Santa Clara and beating a really good San Francisco 49ers team.
Oh, for sure. I've got the Niners, too. I think the Niners, I don't think they're going to suffer a Super Bowl runner-up bounce down. I think they will be back in contention once again.
Also because, the Super Bowl window for the 49ers is really closing up. Probably, I think, this year, maybe next year, because then they're going to have to renew those contracts, which are not going to be good for their salary cap.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. They got a good ton now. Speaking of contracts, one last NFL note I want to bring up real quick. The Cowboys are planning to negotiate a new contract with Dak Prescott, which I guess they just don't like winning playoff games, I guess. I don't understand this at all.
For me, the big issue is why Jerry Jones has to cling so much for players that the Dallas find to the draft. When you want to win Super Bowl titles, you have to go bold. You have to let it go. For example, if Jerry Jones was the owner of the Rams, he would have never done that trade with Jared Goff and for Matthew Stafford, because if Dak Prescott for all those years he has been a Cowboy, which is almost 9 to 10 years, and he only took the team to divisional rounds, and he's gonna get his contract renewed. Imagine what Jerry Jones would have done with Jared Goff, who went to a Super Bowl with the Rams. But the Rams ownership went bold, made a trade that paid off. So that's why the Cowboys are gonna be, the same old story with same results, because they never try anything push or bold to win.
Absolutely. It's just Jerry Jones. He needs to retire. He needs to let the reins go. He needs to let other people make the decisions in Dallas, but he just never will, and he will as long as he is still cognitively able to. And that's just the reality for Dallas fans when it comes to Jerry Jones.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in any case, let's move on to some college football here.
Before that, for I guess also yesterday's game, we have to
Oh
just
yes, yes,
address.
we
See,
yes
it's so funny that since it felt this Friday game in São Paulo kind of feels like an opener, but the opener was yesterday.
and it was a fantastic game in Kansas City between the Baltimore Ravens and the Kansas City Chiefs with some Taylor Swift thrown in there once again. Because hey, shocker, the relationship lasted the offseason, and she is still with Travis Kelce. But in any case, man, this thing came down to the very last play. Lamar Jackson has to be punching himself today because he missed a wide open Zay Flowers on the second to last play of the game, and then had a really nice ball to Isaiah Likely, who looked fantastic. Looks like he could be the best tight end on the Ravens, maybe supplanting Mark Andrews, and he just could not get that toe in on the last play of the game as the Chiefs won 27-20. But I'll say this, it looked like Kansas City was the better team on both lines of scrimmage, and that should really concern Baltimore because if you're going to beat Kansas City in January, you're going to have to find a way to overcome that. And I just think this offensive line for Baltimore is going to have to improve a lot throughout the season to win.
One thing I have to say about yesterday is normally what people say about Lamar Jackson is that, oh, he's such a regular season kind of player and he scrambles in the playoffs. Maybe he now have a average, kind of goodish regular season and goes really well in the playoffs. Maybe it will be the opposite, but definitely John Harbaugh has a lot to address and to fix. But also we have to acknowledge how Kansas City looks really good, how Patrick Mahomes look really sharp, and they're gonna be the favorites again.
Yeah, and also screw the league for allowing them to get Xavier Worthy. He had 2 touchdowns last night, the rookie out of Texas. I mean, he just looks electric. He looks like a Tyreek Hill Jr. And that's the last thing that the league needed the Kansas City to get. So Chiefs look prime, but the Ravens are still going to be really good. I don't know if I love the way they're using Derrick Henry, which, by the way, just on a personal note, was hard for me to watch. But, it is what it is. We needed to do it. And I'll be honest, Henry, he did have a touchdown, but I don't think he played great last night. So I'll be curious because it felt like it's going to be hard to, I think, mesh Lamar's running styles with Derrick Henry's running styles and have it be effective. So it's going to be interesting to see how that develops throughout the year, but I think these are both playoff teams. All right, finally, let's go over to some college football because, man, we got a lot to talk about, not a lot of time to do it, so let's get right into it. So we start off with – I kind of want to save the balls for after all of this, so I'm going to skip balls and come back. So first we want to talk about Colorado, the Deion Sanders special, this Deion Sanders circus, as we like to call him in Boulder. They survived barely North Dakota State. And man, they tried to give this thing away last Thursday. They threw a pass on first down when the opponent had no timeouts, gave them the ball back for no reason at all, and almost paid the price. And it just seems like right now this team only really exists to boost Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter's stats, and they're, I think, about to take a string of losses.
Yeah, I mean, as entertaining as it is, it's a team that has more for the Sanders family than the program. But then Deion Sanders can go and say, "Oh, before I arrived, the team was 1-11. So what are you guys complaining about?" So that's the harsh reality is that not below average with Deion Sanders, maybe worse without him, but with that kind of the kind with that opinion, I have to ask if when Shedeur Sanders leaves Colorado and goes to the NFL, I don't see Deion Sanders staying.
I agree, 100%. I mean, this is a vanity project. He's gone as soon as his family is gone, and I don't know how Colorado rebuilds because remember they really haven't done any high school recruiting for the last 2 years. He has signed a total of 7 high school recruits since he got there. Fully a transfer portal team. And I kind of want to lump these two guys into it too. Florida State. Oh my God. I mean, just total fraudulent in terms of like how to not use the transfer portal. I mean, this team was terrible. I mean, they're getting pushed around up front on both sides of the ball. Boston College last Monday outrushed them 270-21. I mean, and DJ Ukulele just um, could not connect with his receivers. The receivers were dropping passes left and right. He was getting sacked. Just terrible, terrible start. I mean, I don't think they're going to make a bowl game at this point. Colorado and Florida State showed the perils of the transfer portal.
Yeah, first of all, Dabo Swinney, what a disappointment. A coach with so much talent and who got titles, but I guess when he couldn't find a replacement for Trevor Lawrence, he couldn't be as good as he was.
Oh, for sure. And Clemson's on the other extreme of that. I think what we're learning is you still have to do high school recruiting, right? Like you can't ignore traditional high school recruiting, but you still have to use transfer portal some. You have to use it to supplement yourself. You can't use it to build a program. Clemson, Colorado, and Florida State are on that side of this coin, and Clemson just doesn't use it at all. And we're seeing how they're falling behind in terms of skill players and quarterback because Clay Klubnik is just not it. And to be fair, Clemson could still be a really good team this year. I think Georgia is probably going to do what they did last week to most teams, but still, like Clemson has no shot at a national championship. That's for sure. Speaking of a team that could be in the national championship picture, Notre Dame, big win at Texas A&M last week, winning a road game at night on the SEC. That's a game that felt like in the past you would see Notre Dame lose, but hey, they got it done. Although I don't know how good Texas A&M really is. Their quarterback went 12 of 30, Connor Wegman. Well, he was terrible. So shout out to Notre Dame for at least getting the win. And you look at the rest of their schedule, the hardest game they have by far is USC. By far. Probably Georgia Tech. Outside of those particular matchups, I think they should roll for everyone else. And at least 11-1 Notre Dame probably makes it into the playoffs. So that game was huge in terms of keeping them in that playoff hunt.
Yeah, it was a really tough game for Notre Dame, especially the first half. I was expecting more, but that was the kind of game. That game reminded me a lot of the Notre Dame Ohio State last season. Really tough matchup, and Marcus Freeman finally got a good win.
Absolutely, but I'll say this though: that passing game was like non-existent for them from Riley Leonard and those receivers. They're going to have to massively improve that if they have any shot of making noise in the college football playoff. So I'll be curious to see how they develop throughout the year. A team that is not going to be in the playoffs is the Florida Gators, though. Oh my god!
Oh my god!
I mean, getting destroyed by Miami in the swamp, it was glorious. I just wish Tennessee could do that, but for some reason we just can't win games. I don't know why. We're just cursed. But is Billy Napier even going to make it to this Tennessee game this year? Because Florida is just a tire fire, an absolute disaster. The fans have completely turned on him. And you look at that schedule, they may not get to 4 wins this year.
This Florida's tenure with Billy Napier reminds me a lot of Jamie Pruitt in the Volunteers. I mean, some good wins, but overall disappointing.
Yeah, and also too going after the fans. Because remember, Jerry Pruitt would go after the fans. Earlier this week, Billy Napier was like, "There's people who are criticizing me from their rural Central Florida basements," which as a lot of people from Florida have pointed out, you can't really have basements in Florida because of the fact they're under sea level. I mean, your parents don't have a basement.
There's Florida. Yeah, I mean, basement something that you don't do it, at least in South Central Florida.
Exactly. But going after the fans after you got blown out, just not a good look at all. Especially when you just bad. The Graham Mertz his ceiling is not very high. You can tell they're missing Ricky Pearsall from last year, which by the way, just want to shout him out real quick. He, he got shot last week, but he is survived. He's actually out of the hospital now. And apparently, he's going to be ready to play on Monday night, which is insane. Literally going from being shot to going back into the game 9 days later is crazy. So, shout out to Ricky Pearsall. But yeah, just bad in the lines of scrimmage. And just the talent's not there. Like Florida should be one of the top 5 or 10 most talented teams in the country every single year. You're in the only SEC team in Florida. Like there's no excuse at all to not have the talent necessary to compete at a high level, and they just don't. Like Miami looked like the SEC team on Saturday, like with Cam Ward, with Xavier Restrepo, with former VFL Tyler Barron. Like, I mean, those boys have the swag, and that's the first time I'm watching Miami. That I don't think. Did you ever watch those 30 for 30s with Miami?
The U and all the
yeah.
Catholic versus convicts. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the first time that Miami has felt like Miami in a very long time. They got swag. I mean, they were out there like doing the Gator chomps. They were talking to the Florida recruits. I mean, Miami, I think, should be considered the prohibitive ACC favorite. They look miles ahead of Clemson. I think the teams with the most threat to them are probably like Louisville, maybe NC State, maybe Georgia Tech, but Miami's more talented than all those teams. So I think Miami has an inside track to be in the playoffs right now. And Mario Cristobal might have assembled a team so good that they're too good for him to screw up in terms of coaching. So, because Mario Cristobal's strength is recruiting.
And also, I think the ACC is wide open. Miami has a chance to finally win the ACC.
Yes, and also Virginia Tech too completely blundered their opening. We losing to Vandy. Hey, shout out to Vandy winning a big game. But man, Virginia Tech, all this hype, and I didn't understand the hype all offseason. People talking about like, oh, Virginia Tech won their last 6 games against bad competition. They're bringing back everybody. So yeah, Virginia Tech's going to be good. I'm like, I don't know, man. This is a team that lost to Marshall and Rutgers last year, and we saw that team show up again. Unless they have like a Michael Vick or a Tyra Taylor, I don't see Virginia Tech being relevant anytime soon in the more modern era, because I just think they kind of got left behind a little bit from where they were 15, 20 years ago under Frank Beamer. And losing to Vandy is an indictment on where Virginia Tech is as a program.
Yeah, my lot. Yeah, I guess. But shout out to the Commodores. Fans showed up to this game, 1-0, and also showing the SEC can compete with the ACC in the mid to lower level.
Absolutely. I'll say that the game of the week, though, was probably USC LSU. This thing was back and forth, and USC had a big boy drive in the last 2 minutes to win it. And I guess I might have to apologize to Lincoln Riley and the Trojans. I had them going 4-8. And when we did our Big Ten predictions, they looked a lot better than that. They might actually have a defense, which was something I was not anticipating USC having. And Lincoln Riley outcoached Brian Kelly because Brian Kelly, once again, went for it on 4th downs when he shouldn't have, and then went into the post-game press conference and absolutely threw his team under the bus. Now, blamed them, didn't take any of the blame, which is classic Brian Kelly, and which is why this guy has never won a national title, because he's just not likable.
Yeah, I guess. Also, he's 0-4 in season openers for LSU. That should count against him as well.
Yeah, and to be fair, LSU is starting off against good competition compared to the most of the rest of us, but that is what it is, right? So, but still, you got to win at least some of those. Speaking of not winning against the best competition, let's shift it over to our volunteers. We started off with in what you affectionately called the Nick Hill Bowl, Tennessee versus Chattanooga. It was the game was over. The game was over before it started. It just, I don't know. That might have been the most dominant half of football I've ever seen Tennessee play.
Three touchdowns and a field goal. Their first 4 drives. I mean, that says it all.
Yeah, I mean, I think they scored the first 7, if I'm not mistaken. Chattanooga's going to be a good team in FCS. They're still ranked in the top 10. They just didn't have the horses here. And Rusty Wright, he's been admitting this week at Chattanooga media that he knew 5 minutes to the game he had no chance to win this game. So he just kind of went really conservative and just basically protected his quarterback Like, he just decided, I'm not getting my quarterback hurt in this game. So you really can't take much from this. The only one thing I can take, though, is Nico looks sharp. Nico looks very, very sharp. Now, he's going to have a much tougher test tomorrow night against NC State. But I saw things in that game that I really haven't seen any other UT quarterback do. I mean, some of the throws he was making, some of the windows he was throwing these balls into. I mean, it was just incredible to watch. I mean, you can tell why this guy was a 5-star, the number 1 quarterback coming out of high school. And the talent he has around him, these receivers, Deontay Fortin Jr., I think he's starting to show why we were excited about him. He could have a huge year this year. I think Brazil has some big plays. Brew McCoy looked great. Like, coming back from injury, glad to see him back on the field. And he looks shifty. His knee looks fine. Dylan Sampson looked great in the backfield, averaging 12 yards a carry. It's going to be a lot for any team to really stop this. And this is where we get into tomorrow, because tomorrow is the first really big game of the year for Tennessee. They go over the mountains to Charlotte to take on the NC State Wolfpack. 7:30 kick on ABC. We get Kirk Herbstreit tomorrow night. This is going to be a huge one right here. Now, the line has moved. The Vols were 4-point favorites to begin the week. They're now up to a 10-point favorite, which is really unusual to see such a shift towards Tennessee. But this is in part because NC State really struggled with their opening week game. They were trailing Western Carolina 21-17 in the fourth quarter. And for context, Western Carolina and Chattanooga, I actually watched those two play in person last year, and it was a game that went down to the last play. It was 52-50 between those teams. So it's safe to assume, in my view, that Chattanooga and Western Carolina are roughly equivalent teams. And Chattanooga and Tennessee wax the floor with their opponent, while NC State really struggled. Now, how much does that matter for week 2? I don't know, because college football is a week-to-week sport. Teams change, matchups change. But I think I'm looking at the raw numbers here, Tennessee's the more talented team. But Nico's really first big spot.
And the crowd's going to be 50-50, 60-40 Tennessee, because I've been to a neutral site game where Tennessee was supposed to be the road team against Georgia Tech in the 2017 opener, and there were 60-40 Vol fans. So I think there's going to be plenty of Vol fans, going to be a lot of fans going to show up, and Tennessee definitely is going to put up a good offense. The question is because their defense was not tested against Chattanooga. As you pointed out, even the Mocs head coach didn't want to kind of push his quarterback. So it's going to be the first real test for the defense.
Right, and Grayson McCall, who's the quarterback for NC State, he looked off in week 1 in the game against Western Carolina. There's one player in NC State that really concerns me. His name is KJ Concepcion. Number 10, he's the wide receiver. He had 3 touchdowns against Western Carolina. He looks like he's by far the star of that offense. Justin Jolly, he's the tight end transfer they got from UConn. I watched him play last year. Actually, I think Jason, our friend Jason Byrick, spoke to his parents, trying to convince him to transfer to Tennessee, but he chose NC State instead. I think he will be a big fit for NC State. But the key here is, we know the Vols, at least on paper, are supposed to have a really good pass rush. We didn't really get to see that last week because Chattanooga didn't really give us an opportunity because of their play calling. NC State's going to have to throw in this game, and they're probably going to have to throw on this game a lot. Now, the thing for them is, can they control clock? Can their running back Jordan Waters get a couple of first downs to keep things going? Can Grayson McCall is a mobile quarterback? Can he get a couple of first downs to keep things going for them clockwise? Because I think if you're NC State, you want to limit the possessions that you go in this offense game. Because I think any defense is going to have a tough time stopping Tennessee. Especially if Nico is as good as he looked last week, it's going to be hard, because when you have a quarterback that can throw over the middle like Nico, it just opens everything up. It opens up your running attack. It opens up all the receivers. And this offense is going to be able to do things that you didn't see last year because Joe Milton couldn't throw over the middle. And that's going to be a huge difference for Tennessee this year. And I think NC State's a good team. I still think they're going to be a top 5 team in the ACC. I just don't think they have the horses here. I really don't. And I can't hear you guys.
No, I just point out I agree with all your points. Definitely, I think the Vols are going to look sharp, and give me the Volunteers.
Yeah, give me the Volunteers too. And normally I would be kind of hesitant to outright just pick the Volunteers, but I this team looks like a team that could be just as good, if not better, than the 22 team. This looks like a team that has a shot at the playoffs. Is it guaranteed? We've got some tough games here in the next couple of weeks, including tomorrow night. And if we turn over the ball some, it certainly could be a game that could get a lot closer, and a game that NC State could end up winning. If turnovers happen, if the secondary ends up being a lot worse, and I think it's going to be. But at the end of the day, I think our pass rush is going to cause problems. And I think the defensive secondary will actually play decent, well enough to get it done. So I've got the Vols winning as well. All right, let's look at some other games here real quick. Real quick, upset alert here for week 2. And for me, a game that I am personally looking at in terms of a potential upset. Look at this game here between Boise State and Oregon. Oregon looked horrible in week 1. I mean, only beating Idaho by 10 points. Seriously, only by 10 points. Idaho had a chance to win this game in the fourth quarter. Should be alarming. And Boise State, they have a running back named Ashton Genty who rushed for 250 yards and 6 touchdowns in week 1. Now, I think Oregon will still win this game, but don't be shocked if the Broncos have a shot there in the second half.
Oh yeah, I think it's gonna be a very tough game, but I think there's a chance for the Broncos to win it. Another for me upset alert: Arkansas going to Stillwater, Oklahoma, beating Oklahoma State.
I can totally see that too. Oklahoma State, defense has a lot of questions within. Arkansas did put up 70 in their opener. Granted, it was against UA Pine Bluff, but still, I think their offense will be a lot better in big competition here. And the thing for Oklahoma State, and I heard someone else point this out, there's a problem with Oklahoma State in terms of their best player is Ollie Gordon, and they might run him into the ground at some point. So if Arkansas can at least slow him down, they've got a shot. Also, App State at Clemson too, and I might put that in my underrated games because Clemson, a lot of people are down in Clemson, and of course, Appalachian State is notorious for upsets. Michigan, Texas A&M almost beat Tennessee back in 2016. Could this be another spot that the Mountaineers pull off an upset?
Yeah, I mean that's true. I can totally see that happening.
Yeah, I think also another underrated game too. It's a non-ranked game here. Texas Tech at Washington State. I think these opportunities for Washington and Oregon State this year when they play other P4 teams, if they can win some of these games, I think that will strengthen their case to maybe eventually get an invite to like the Big 12.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. So those are some underrated games. And then my best bet, the best bet of the week. And I hate to do this to my friend Alex Golish out in South Florida. I'm going to take Alabama minus 31. I do not think you're going to see a repeat of last year's Alabama-South Florida game. I think they're going to come out and be very, very motivated to show that was a fluke and that Alabama is on a different tier than the Bulls. And I think they're going to win that one by more than 31.
My best bet. Give me Penn State going bet the over against Bowling Green.
Okay. Penn State maybe could. I don't know if Penn State maybe can cover on their own. Penn State might cover that on their own.
Yeah.
So I could see them winning that like 52-7. Also, love Kentucky minus 8.5. I think South Carolina is going to be horrible. South Carolina almost lost to Old Dominion last week. Kentucky looked pretty solid against Southern Miss, and I think Kentucky will take care of business here in week 1. Also, Auburn minus 11.5 against California. All right, top 5 games of the week. We've already picked Falls NC State. We have the battle for the Cyhawk in Iowa. Iowa State and Iowa. Who wins this one?
I mean, that's the biggest game probably in the state of Iowa. And give me Iowa.
I'm going to agree with Iowa, too. They actually scored 40 last week, Gus. Shocker. Iowa scored 40 points in a game.
So, I guess they learn a lot from that Citrus Bowl lost.
Yeah, hopefully. I think this will be much tighter, but I got Iowa as well. South Carolina, Kentucky, I kind of alluded to. I really like Kentucky in this matchup. First SEC matchup of the season.
Give me Kentucky, too.
Now, a big game, I think, for the G5 here. Kansas State travels to New Orleans to play Tulane. A huge opportunity for the Green Wave to maybe establish themselves as the favorite to get that G5 playoff spot. Can Tulane do this? And
tickets are going for $2. They're for this kind of matchup. It's kind of a bargain. Give me Tulane.
And if I were in New Orleans, I would go to that in a heartbeat. I think I like Kansas State here. I have Kansas State winning the Big 12, but I think they will get tested for sure by Tulane. Prime time, Colorado goes to Nebraska, who won their game last week. Dylan Raiola looked really solid for the Cornhuskers. Who's winning this primetime matchup in Lincoln?
Give me Nebraska.
I agree. Give me the Cornhuskers. I think Cornhuskers will roll, in my opinion. All right, game of the week here. The defending national champions hosting Texas coming into town. An SEC Big Ten matchup. Who we got here?
Oh, Texas. But I don't think it's going to be as easy as people are saying. Even the line, I think it's going to – I'll bet the under. I think Michigan is going to force Texas a lot on defense. And I think it's going to be maybe a field goal, maybe one touchdown.
Yeah, I think Texas wins this thing like 20-10. I think Michigan's defense is still elite. The problem is they don't have a quarterback. Their quarterback situation is terrible. They didn't have much of an offense last week against Fresno State. And they got to get Donovan Edwards the ball. He only got 11 carries last week. I don't know what the deal was with that. But, yeah, I got Texas here, but man, I think it'll be a low-scoring kind of ugly game. All right, so week 2 college football. Starts tonight with SMU BYU. Another underrated matchup, by the way. SMU, if they win that, we'll watch for them maybe as a sneaky ACC contender. All right. Briefly, just some MLB updates. It's going from bad to worse for the Atlanta Braves. They are officially right now out of the playoffs. They lost last night to the Rockies 3-1, and it's getting worse for them, unfortunately.
So. And the Mets are the opposite. The Mets are on a roll. My New York Mets, of course they had a series against the Chicago White Sox, so that was a gimme. But
right,
it's gonna be a really interesting fight in the NL East because the Mets surpassed the Braves. They have literally the same
record right now. If this game were held today. Like they would have to hold a playoff game, basically, a 1-game playoff.
Yeah, that's true because they had literally the same number of wins and losses, but it's interesting that in the National League is a fight with East versus West because in the other 2 teams are fighting for the wild card is the Padres and the Diamondbacks.
Absolutely, and they're on the heels there of the Dodgers right now. That's only 5 games. Baltimore has a half-game lead over the Yankees. Man, the Yankees not winning that division just feels like an absolute failure.
But maybe they'll make them stronger in the postseason because how many times they won the division and failed in the postseason? So
true, and as we've seen recently, because of that long break, division winners might be at a disadvantage.
Yeah. So maybe this is a strategy in the Bronx.
Maybe. Hopefully it's a strategy too in Atlanta as well. But they got to actually make the playoffs first. So
that's fair.
In any case, and also shout out to The 109 loss Chicago White Sox. Terrible. All right, real quick. We're now in the NASCAR playoffs. Last 10 games or 10 races of the year. Chase Briscoe won at Darlington. He got the last playoff spot because of that win. Denied Kyle Busch. So it's his first year in, I think, ever missing the playoffs. So really shocking there. His career is starting to go on the downslide, but he's been running well the last few weeks, so maybe he can get back into it next year. This knocked out Chris Buescher and Bubba Wallace out of the playoffs, which those two have been racing well this year. Just could not get a win, and because of the win in your end system, it knocked him out. If I had to pick one of these 16 to be champion, Tyler Reddick has just been on a roll right now. It feels like his team has all the momentum. It feels like Kyle Larson has been inconsistent. Chase Elliott hasn't really been elite. William Byron's been inconsistent. So right now, I got to go Reddick heading into these playoffs. But Atlanta is a wide open wild card. And this is, frankly, right now, probably the best track on the schedule. If you remember earlier this year, they had a 3-wide finish. And that Daniel Suarez won. Absolutely a banger track. I'm going to go Denny Hamlin, though. I think he gets it done and advances himself to the second round. And there's probably no driver with more pressure than Denny Hamlin because he still doesn't have a championship. And then, too, if Tyler Reddick wins, remember, he's an owner of that car. It'd be kind of embarrassing for him if the car he owns wins a championship, but he himself does not. That would be, I think, a huge blow to his ego.
These interesting developments in NASCAR. I think it's going to be a really interesting fight for the title.
Absolutely. But in any case, we know there's a big NFL game tonight. But what else is going on in Brazil? You have sports.
I guess, and the reason why there's an NFL game tonight in Brazil is because Brazil is in a FIFA break. So there's no games, at least in the first division. We had a shocker last weekend. Corinthians beating Flamengo 2-1. I did not see that coming. Even though it was Corinthians' birthday, the stadium was packed. Flamengo looked really sloppy, looked really, disengaged. Davi Luiz played horribly. But Corinthians, even though they had a huge win, they still in the relegation zone. So the big question is, can Corinthians, escape the relegation zone? Today, Corinthians, some rumors, Fabrizio Romano announcing that Memphis Depay, Dutch soccer player, is coming to Corinthians.
Man, how old is he? I mean, that dude's been around forever.
Yeah, so he's 30 years old. According to the website Globoesporte.com, the Corinthians is going to be paying him 70 million reais in bonus and a salary in 28-month contract. So around 3 million, around a million, some close to $800,000 to $900,000 a month. So he definitely brings a lot of poise. But the big question is, Corinthians has money issues in the recent years. Has kind of delaying payments in terms of salaries, and also not paying the transfer fees for some players they acquire. So the question is, Corinthians getting this kind of huge player promising to pay big money when they are not getting, paying their current players.
That doesn't sound like a recipe for success, and that might be the reason why they're going into relegation.
Yeah.
But anyway, more upsets, so that'll save them, hopefully.
Yeah. Then last but not least, Botafogo, really impressive win over Fortaleza 2-0. This gave back from Botafogo the lead in the Brazilian Championship with 13 games remaining into the end. Botafogo looks the better team in the Brazilian soccer, but the question is, and can they sustain that? Can Botafogo sustain that?
Well, they're going further than they did last year, so maybe they can. But
yeah,
we'll be calling it right here. That is all the time that we have here for Two Countries, Two Americas All Sports, the only American and Brazilian sports podcast, a unique marriage today with the NFL in Sao Paulo. So shout out to everyone down there. Hope everyone has a great time. For Gus Tomazeli, I am Nick Hill. Thank you so much for watching our show.